Good evening, everybody. Good evening, everyone. I think the applause actually goes to members of the audience for managing to find your way into this place and to find a place in this room. So thank you. And it really swells my heart to see this extraordinary turnout, to hear about the work of an extraordinary artist who I imagine needs no introduction to people in this room. Although I am in a moment going to ask my colleague Casey Braun to say just a little bit about the wonderful career and work of Josefina Auslender. I'm Ann Collins Goodyear, co-director of the Bowdoin College Museum of Art, and we are thrilled that you can be with us to celebrate the work of Josefina Auslender, which is now featured at the Bowdoin College Museum of Art in Josefina Auslender, Drawing Myself Free. This first retrospective of the work of a remarkable artist is organized by the BCMA's curator, Casey Braun, who is also the editor of an accompanying catalog that will appear this summer, extending our celebration of this work. This evening, Casey will guide a conversation with Josefina, together with Sarah Bouchard, co-founder of International Artists Manifest and principal of the Sarah Bouchard Gallery, which has long served as Josefina Auslender's representative. We look forward to this special opportunity for fresh insight into the creation and curation of the powerful drawings now on view at the museum, where we hope you can all join us following our discussion for a reception in honor of the artist. Welcome and thank you for being with us this evening. And above all, Josefina, many, many thanks to you for bringing us together this evening and for the extraordinary gift you've given us and sharing your remarkable work. Welcome.
Thank you, Anne, for that warm welcome, and I just want to reiterate my thanks to all of you for being here on a very cold day. Hopefully the body heat will keep us warm for the conversation. As Anne mentioned, my name is Casey Braun. I'm the curator at the Bowdoin College Museum of Art, and I'm joined here by Sarah Bouchard, and of course, Josefina Auslender. I'm not going to introduce Josefina too much because we're going to spend the next 45 minutes or so hearing from Josefina about her artistic practice and about her work. The three of us will be in conversation for about 45 to 50 minutes. At that point, we would love to hear questions from all of you, and following, please join us next door to continue the conversation. But I am going to begin by offering all of you some information about your life and work, Josefina. So you were born in Buenos Aires in 1934. You were interested in art at a very young age and started formally training in art first at the Perugino School of Art. Perugino School of Art, as well as the National School of the Fine Arts, Prilidiano Pueyrredon. See, both of which are in Buenos Aires, and you graduated in 1956. You took a hiatus. You took a break for a few years to raise your two young sons, Marcelo and Ariel, but you did eventually return to art making. So you studied with the ceramicist Carlos Bartolini. You achieved quite some acclaim, but you decided you didn't love ceramics. So you went and studied sculpture with Aurelio Macchi. And it was really under his tutelage in the 1960s as a sculptor that you started creating your first drawings. And it was actually this experience that solidified your love of drawings. So I'm going to show some slides of some of the earliest examples of the drawings that you created from your imagination. And I was, just wondering if you could tell us what was happening when you were making these works. How did it feel to make them? Because you've said in past conversations that these are the first drawings that came from you rather than from your academic training. How did it feel to make them?
Should I begin to talk?
Yeah. Nobody in this room is here for me.
Sorry, I don't have too much experience about that. First of all, I would like to thank the Goodwills and you, Casey, for working so hard for that show. Completely, I don't know, it's something that never thought it would happen to me. So thank you. And of course, thanks to Sarah, because without her, anything would happen. The thing is about that, I have to change something about what you say, if you don't mind.
Of course.
I was under the tutelage of Maki, but Maki hated what I was doing. Because I brought him, I was with him almost 4 years and a half, and just working with the academy, just always copying models and everything, like I did 7 years before at the School of Fine Arts. So, and he didn't allow me to do any sculpture because he wanted me to be drawing especially good, like he wanted me. He considered a sculptor should draw, because the drawings of a sculptor, thanks to him, I learned must be different from the drawings of a person that is painting or drawing. You work in different levels, because the level of a drawing and a painting is over a surface, plane, and the first, second, and third, how do you say, planos?
Yeah, planes.
Planes are, you have to show them while you are working, while the sculpture is different. It's an object that is surrounded by air, by the space, and you have to learn with the drawing to show that the direction of the space and everything. So it was really, for me, were very wonderful years, because I learned a lot, but I wanted to draw about imagination. So when I brought that work to Maki, he said, "Oh, yes, Josefina, yes, you should do that, but later. Now continue doing the academy." I said, "Okay." And I took a taxi, I came to my house, I went to my garden, I took a garden table because I didn't have a studio. I still was going to the studio of another person. So I began to draw, and this is what appeared. And these are really very imaginative works. What happened is that we were receiving the magazine Planet that was, my husband was crazy about all that kind of thing. So, and I was just there looking at everything, and I began to be very inspired about the space, the moving of the planets and everything. And what was, I imagining what was the inside the planets. So, but these are, I consider them the works of my youth as an artist.
And these early drawings didn't have a title, these were, but the first fully realized series that you created, sort of right on the heels of these early drawings, was called The Magic Space. And I think folks will see some similarities and through lines, but could you talk a little bit about your process in creating the magic space? And I'm particularly struck by how you were achieving these like broad swaths of black through graphite. And for those of you who haven't seen these in person in the exhibition, you will really come to appreciate them, I think, even more so. But I'm very interested about sort of how you were progressing from a technical perspective, making these.
Well, At that time, I already have a beautiful drawing table, like architects have, very big, very comfortable. I had a lamp, and I consider that I'm already becoming probably a serious artist, beginning to work. What happened is that my works are always like, they come like in a chain. Everything is connected. So the magic space is connected to the first drawings. But what happened, I began to show them to some friends. And everybody was really very taken about that. So I began to feel more confident about me and my imagination. So I began to create. I call it the magic space because space doesn't exist. There are things flying. There is a moon, where a moon can be everywhere. But those things that are flying or the semi-human are not so human characters that are appearing, and the cubes with the lines and everything. I began to feel that I was going into something very beautiful, and not the work, but my feeling about what I was doing is that just like imagining new worlds and new places that sometimes you want to escape to them. And this is what I did. The blacks are really a lot of work. The blacks are layers. These are not blacks that, for example, I have friends that were saying to me, why don't you just put some ink first, like a base of ink, and then go with graphite? That's not the same, because that black gets dead. But it's like Leonardo with the Mona Lisa. He never finished the Mona Lisa. The Mona Lisa probably we like, and we are so attracted to her because of the layers and layers and layers that he put in that paint. He never finished that. It was always a little bit and a little bit. The same is with the black. If you begin, the black means working with different sizes of pencils and go over and over. So probably some are 5 layers. So it took me for a drawing almost a month to finish the background that was that black. So for me, it's very important to get my work in a way attracting people, calling them to come and to look at them. So I don't know if I hope it's happy for some people.
Gonna skip ahead now to La Ciudad.
So I think talking about the through line in your work, in a recent conversation we had, you talked about how the cubes and geometric shapes in the magic space started to grow and evolve into these structures and buildings in La Ciudad, the city. And then after that, inspired by reflections of traffic lights in the city streets at night in the rain, you started experimenting with color.
Yes.
After that, something profound happened. And these amorphous shapes started appearing in your work for the first time. You didn't understand where they were coming from, and you started wrestling with the work. It was a challenging time for you because the work started talking to you and telling you that there was something deeper inside of you that needed to be expressed. You worked with it through the Ciudad, through the Red series, and then also finally culminating in Los Cuerpos.
Yes.
I would love for you to be able to talk to us from your perspective about what was happening for you as an artist with your work at that time.
Well, when I was working with the city, it was very similar that when I was working with the city, the Magic Space, for example, because from the Magic Space, I began to, suddenly they began to come those big blocks that they look more like buildings. So I began to investigate a little bit more into photography too. I didn't never told you that. And in photography,
You always keep secrets.
yes, yes. And so do you know? Because I went to see a movie with Jack Lemmon and Anne Bancroft. That movie about that film about that person that lives in New York. He's completely crazy. He hates the people. He hates New York, and the buildings are just around him, just almost killing him. And I was really taken by the photography of that film. So I came home and I began to work aside those blocks. Other, you know, when the photographer goes from down to up and works on the upper part of the buildings and everything. And I was very happy about that. Yes, it's true. One night with my husband going to, I don't know where, and it was raining terribly, and it was in front of the light, the street lights, and in the floor I saw moving greens or yellows or reds. And I said, oh, that's interesting. That can be introduced for the first time, color in my works, because they were always black and white. And I was looking for, in a way, I was looking for the work to ask me to be colored in a way. Mm-hmm. So that was the first time I began to introduce color. And another thing is, there are some works, those, for example, or those are inspired by, again, photographies. Like when you see two lines of cars, one going, one coming, so one lines were red and the other lines are white in the photography. So what I began to do is just surrender the work. It's like walking around a dark night at the street, an empty street, not people at all, and there are those lines walking around. Some were with red, and some were green, and some were white. And I had lots of fun doing that, and I enjoyed that series a lot. So, because I began to introduce color, I made some work, like, for example, this one that has more color. It's brown, it's yellow, it has some grays, but it happened something. That block in the front part, I couldn't explain why it was there, but I was drawing them, and I enjoyed drawing them, but they were very poignant at the same time because there was something heavy there happening, and I couldn't realize what was happening with me, especially why I was drawing them. And then I did another one and another one, so I made like 5 or 6 of those drawings. Because I was working with color, I began to work with red, but only with a red pencil and with white. So, and I was playing with them just in my leisure time. So I was not in my studio, I was not working. So I was just beginning to move them. I was moving them with a graphite. So the color was done by a pencil color, but all the modeling of the work was done by graphite. And I said, wow, this is coming from the city. These are the same things that are in those packages. Now they are under that piece of fabric that is moving around, and with them moving. So one day, that kind of piece of drapery disappeared, and the crude reality appeared. And it was the City Los Cuerpos. I was so scared about that city that I called my mentor, Manuel Espinosa, that was an extraordinary artist too. And I said, Manuel, I don't know what is going on. I am very scared with those works. And he said, woof, they are different. And he said, well, probably they are in your system. Just take them out. So it took me 3 years to take them out. And I worked with them, and I couldn't stop working with them. And in reality, what happened is that reading one day a newspaper that appeared in Argentina after the militaries left the government and began the trials of the militaries, there was a small newspaper that appeared for 15 weeks or 20 weeks, where they were showing what was happening in the trials. And I learned that that series appeared when the tortures began in Argentina, and they finished, they left me because one day they disappeared when the tortures finished in Argentina. And that was 3 years of that thing. So I said, well, that's probably the most personal of all my works. It's me, a mother, and a wife, and a sister of so many men, especially men, but there were women too, that they were abducted, disappeared, and some came back, and some didn't come back. So later I said, well, I didn't have my children, Marcelo and Ariel, they both came back, and they were always at home, late at home, but sometimes they didn't know. And Marcelo, you don't know, I was sitting at night at the window, waiting for them to come up. When I saw them listen to the lift that was opening the door and somebody was coming in, I ran into my bedroom and I turned off the light, and they never knew that I was waiting for them.
Well, and
So, yes, no.
Well, no, and I think that this period when you were creating Los Cuerpos between 1976 and 1979, just to give some context, I mean, there was we were in the midst of the dirty war in Argentina, which is what you're referencing, where tens of thousands of mostly young men were disappeared. But this was also a period that was, was transformative for the country, but this was a period where you changed as a person. Los Cuerpos changed you.
Yes, of course, it changed me, because first I wanted to say something that I wasn't a political person. I was just a citizen in a place. And I don't know why that happened to me, because my colleagues were asking me, what happened to you? What are you doing? And I didn't know how to explain my friends what was happening to me. And then, in many ways, I feel like, although I was luckier than the mothers of Plaza de Mayo or the grandmothers of Plaza de Mayo, my 2 sons were always with us at home. I felt really very strongly about that, especially that group of people in Argentina, because when things are terrible are happening, people never think about the little person, the person that works every day, the person that is at home, the woman that cooks, that takes care of their children and everything. And suddenly, things like this are happening. So, in many ways, at the beginning, I was scared and I was very unhappy with myself, because I was doing that. And then I said, well, no, in a way, this is a tribute to all Argentinian people that suffer a lot during that time. What happened, what you are saying, is that it changed me completely. in such a way that I couldn't continue working. I didn't feel inside me anything that could connect me with my work. But at the same time, the gallery was in Buenos Aires organized a solo show for me in Madrid, Spain. So that's the first time I went to Europe, and I traveled in an airplane because I never went to Europe because I am terribly afraid of airplanes. So I had to stay in Spain for 15 or 20 days during the time of preparing the show and then coming back to the opening of the show. And at the same time, I began to go to the Prado Museum 2 or 3 times a week to see all the marbles. And when I met Velázquez, I met Murillo, Murillo, all of them. But what I didn't see very close was Goya, like you call Goya. And especially the dark paintings of Goya and the drawings, the Caprichos de la Guerra. Wow, I said to me. He was such a bright guy. Los Caprichos de la Guerra. Well, I came back to Buenos Aires and I said, well, I will not use Los Caprichos de la Guerra, that means the Caprichos of War. But I call them, because suddenly I began to do some drawings completely different from what I did until before Los Cuerpos. And this is how the serie Caprichos appeared. And this is a series I made more than 60 or 70 works. And it was shown at the Museum of Modern Art in Buenos Aires. And it in many ways, it made me very happy because although I was so crazy and obsessive person like always, what happened is I could begin to scratch my works and hurt them and I could just cut them or whatever. And this is how they were.
Well, and I mean, this is a pivotal series. You know, it was a pretty long-lasting series.
Came here to the United States.
Exactly. So, you know, a lot of these were made in the 1990s. So you emigrated to Maine in the late 1980s and settled in Cape Elizabeth in 1991. And this was one of the series that you started in Buenos Aires and continued here. And I want to pause here just on the decade of the 1980s, because Josefina, you were gaining a lot of recognition in Argentina. You were having exhibitions, like you mentioned, the Museum of Modern Art in Buenos Aires, the Museum of Fine Arts. You were representing Argentina internationally at biennials and triennials. You had more than a dozen, close to 24 solo and group exhibitions, even when you were living in the United States. And when you moved here, though, your output slowed a little bit. So could you tell us a little bit more? You've mentioned that your mode of mark making started to change a little bit with Los Caprichos. They're maybe a little bit less, when I look at them, a little bit less precise and controlled as some of them.
Well, yes, because I was different too.
And we've had a really fascinating conversation about this drawing in particular.
This drawing is like, I arrived to the United States and everything was pink. Everything was pink. Women were using lots of pink. They were including pink cars. And in Cape Elizabeth, in South Portland, there was a house in the corner of Cottage Lane and now I'm very emotional, so forget the street, that it was pink, completely pink. And somebody told me that this was a house that everybody was very happy. It was an old house and very famous and whatever. Lately, I was going in the car with a friend, and I realized that probably there were new people moving into the house, and they took away the pink from that house. So it's not anymore. But this is what it was. And another thing is that that bitterness, it's true what you say, because we didn't ask for asylum, and didn't come in the United States, for the United States. And I didn't came here as a refugee. I came here with my husband because we were sick and tired of the Peronists in Argentina. And we didn't want to be anymore. And the things that are happening now in Argentina is because of them and many other things. So my husband was suffering a lot. He was a very democratic person. He loved the United States. He loved the system in the United States, how it worked. And he wanted to come and live a life like many people live. So for me, it was an adventure in a way. But well, I came. And it took me a lot of time to make friends. What was wonderful is when my friend Vivian Rasse called me and said, Josefina, we could go, remember Vivian, to the Peregrine Press and work there with people. And this is when I met so many people, Alice Spencer and Alice O'Neill, Graham, Grace De Gennaro, and with Vivian. And everything became so wonderful for me because I began to feel like I was accepted as a person. But it was very difficult for a long time for me to be able to show important. I showed with Rosemary Frick that she was wonderful with me, opened the doors of her gallery for me in a very generous way. Not so generous like Sarah. Sarah is the king.
Well, and another sort of landmark moment, I think, in your establishing your personal and professional networks came in 2007. You were featured in an exhibition at the Portland Museum of Art called Graphite, and some of the drawings that were featured there include this.
And the other one.
And this
yes.
From the series Stendhal.
Yes.
And the PMA was also the first U.S. institution to collect your work. Bowdoin was the second. But I was wondering if you could maybe talk a little bit about the series Stendhal. I'm particularly curious about the title.
Well, Stendhal is probably the series that I thought it was the last, because after Stendhal, my husband became very ill and I couldn't work. I had to take care of him, especially those works, these two works. Mm-hmm. These are probably my favorites because they demanded a lot of work. Those reds and those moving of the reds were very complicated to do that. But okay, but the thing is, I couldn't give them a name because nothing came to me. There was nothing that happened to me just to be so dramatic that put a name. But suddenly, I remember when I was 15 years old, around 15 years old, my father decided to give me 40 pesos a month for all my, and it was a lot of money at that time. So I just to spend 10 pesos a week. So I was buying paper, I was buying materials for the school, traveling to school, and going to the movies. And but I could save money. So one day I decided to be brave. I go to the center of Buenos Aires by myself, without my mom and without my dad, just an adventure. And to go to a new bookshop that opened called, I forgot, what is the name? Anaconda, yes. So, sorry, could say that?
Marcelo.
Marcelo. So the thing is that because the bookshops in Buenos Aires were very elegant, with the boiseries, the books inside, and everybody was speaking low voice, because it was so intimidating. And suddenly came Anaconda, that instead of having all that kind of things, had pyramids of books on the floor. And they were 3 books for 10 pesos, ideal for me. So I went and I bought red and black Stendhal, and then I bought Citizen Thomas Paine by Howard Fast, and Freud. I didn't know who Freud was, but I like the word Freud. It was so beautiful. So I read Red and Black, and I loved it. And so I said to myself, why not give tribute to a writer that introduced me to classical literature in a way? Because after him, I began to read everything. It was there for me. And then in the middle, I could be a writer. I love to write. Yes, I love to write, but I am terrible writing because I'm very dyslexic. So I invert syllables and I don't spell very well. I am a disaster writing. So, so that was Stella.
Well, and I one thing, if you have an opportunity to speak with Josefina, you will know that she has had a lifelong love of literature and poetry, film, photography. But I also love that you referenced, that you actually drew on a childhood memory to create this series. Because when I look at, sort of the squiggles, as we call them, that recalls work in other series, Los Caprichos, examples. This is from a series called Structures, another called For My Own Amusement. And, for those of you who are looking at the PowerPoint, some of these series lasted for over a decade. And your process and the way that you create work isn't linear. You kind of give yourself the freedom to go back and, draw from your own memories, to draw from your own work, to reinvent techniques and revisit them when you want to. And I think one of my favorite series is Voyage, because I think it so beautifully illustrates your mode of creativity and working. So could you talk to us a little bit about the series Voyage and how it came to be and what was happening in your life?
Well, what happened, Voyage came after Stendhal, when I thought my career was finished, because my husband was really very ill, and I spent lots of time taking care of him. The thing is that in the middle, I went to a gallery. What was a gallery? Yes, I met you for the first time.
Oh,
Corey Daniels. Sorry, I'm very emotional. This is so emotional for me. I forget everything. Sorry. And I am very old, so my memory doesn't work very well. The thing is that I went to Corey Daniels, and there I met a person that I knew because we were speaking by phone, but never saw each other. So and somebody told me, this is him. So I went and I introduced myself. Oh, we began to chat. And suddenly Sarah was coming in, because Sarah at that time was working at Connie Daniels. And she stopped her and said, "You have to show Josefina Auslender." And Sarah said to me, "You are Josefina Auslender?" And I said, "Yes." "I thought you were old." And I said, "No." No, she said, complete contrary. It's a very mistake. She said, "I thought you were young."
I'm so glad
And then I said, "No, I am not, I am old." And she said, "But you are old." I said, "Yes, I am old." And so she said, "Do you know Ken Gordon?" I said, "Yes, we are very good friends." And she said, "Well, because Ken talks to me always about you. And I thought you were one of his friends, his younger friends." And I said, "No, I asked Ken permission to tell the story." Sarah said, "Well," so she said, "Can I come to your studio and see your work?" And I said, "Yes." So we arranged, I gave her my phone number, and I waited very patiently for almost a year. Sarah didn't call until she called me one day, and she said, "Can I come? But I don't have too much time. I have only a short time to..." I said, yes, you may come." So she came and she stayed 3 hours in my studio. And this is like in Casablanca, at the beginning of a wonderful friendship. So that's the story.
Well, and I mean, Sarah has been such a fantastic partner and has helped even bring a drawing like this one into the museum's collection.
Yes.
But one of the things that's remarkable to me about this is it's a drawing from the city, from La Ciudad, that you started in 1974.
Yes.
You continued working on it in 1994. You came back to it. But then you've recreated it here in 2013.
Yes.
So tell us how, and again, the series title is called Voyage, and it's clear that this period was a time in your life when you were changing and being changed by the people that you were meeting here. But what sort of stories and voyages were you conveying here?
In reality, this is a sad story, because I was coming back from the nursing home. When my husband had to go to a nursing home, that was a terrible time for me. I was feeling very guilty. So the thing is, I was coming home and I thought, oh, probably I will be able to work now because I have several hours for me. But it was impossible to work. I was feeling very guilty. And I said, I was looking for a way to change myself, just being a little bit for myself. And I said, I don't know why, something remind me of traveling and everything. I said, oh, wouldn't it be nice to make a series that is called Voyage, but Voyage to the past, and come and revisit some of my drawings, and then places where I was, because one night I was in Italy, and we went with my husband late at night to see a Palladio Villa, and it was so romantic, so beautiful. And it was a very dark night with a very clear blue sky, and all those figures that Palladio was putting all over his front part of his buildings, they were just there, standing. And it was a very magical night. So I called that piece Palladio. But then I said, well, I will go back to my drawings, my old drawings. And this is when I began to make it. So what I did is, the sphere, it's me traveling. This. I'm like a planet there, traveling all around, in and out of myself. I always wanted to be inside myself. So I always wanted to see what happened to me, what happened inside me. And it was a disappointment to them.
Well, I think that we have been so lucky to have this sort of brief insight, and we have not even talked about nearly all of the series that are on View Next Door or all of the series that you've created. But now you are 91 years old, and you are still continuing to draw, although you're not using graphite anymore.
No, I don't use graphite because I have rheumatism in my right hand, have problems with the right part of my back. So it's very difficult for me to work. The grip that you need for the graphite is more intense. The ink is easier. The ink comes from the pen by itself, and it helps you a lot. So this is what I'm doing. Yes.
Yeah. So I mean, I think as we kind of bring our portion of the conversation to a close, you have switched to ink. You have created new work. I did, just because it's one of my favorite series, I did want to just share, the wrong way, that you had actually worked on ink within ink very briefly in 1974 when Micron pens sort of first came to Argentina.
Sorry, I was interrupting.
No, it's your time.
I never showed them in Argentina because I showed them to my friend and said, "Oh, why are you doing that kind of junk? Just continue doing what you were doing." So I felt afraid, and I continue doing them because I love to do. What happened is that about the series that I'm changing, I get sick of my work, and I need to change. So this is what is happening. And sometimes I go back to them, but 10 years later, 20 years later, because there they are mine, I love them. So I come and visit them, and I go back, but it's never the same, it's completely different. But in reality, it's always the same. I am an artist. I am a narcissist. I am talking about myself all the time.
Well, I think that is sort of a perfect Josefina note in terms of wrapping up this portion of the conversation, because I personally have really enjoyed hearing you talk about yourself and your work. But we do have a few minutes. So we would welcome questions from the audience. Because we are recording this talk, Christian, are we going to use the mic? We're going to try our very best. I know there's a lot of you, to make sure that you ask your question into the microphone so that we capture it for the camera. So just pause and give us a minute to get it over to you. But are there questions?
I don't have a question. I have a comment. When I saw your show today, I wanted to ask if there was a way to get in touch with you, because I wanted to send you a note, a letter. I came today because my husband was having an MRI at the hospital because he has cancer, and we're going through this journey. I did not know that you had lost your husband to a long sickness, but I was so moved by your art, and I wanted to thank you because I was in the gallery feeling such emotion, and I wanted to tell you that I was experiencing great emotion looking at your pieces, and it meant so much to me. And then when I asked the ladies, they said there was a talk, and you took me here, and I actually walked right behind you, the road right behind you. And I just want to tell you in person what I wanted to say. Thank you for your life work and how much it meant to me to be in your gallery today. And thank you so much for letting me shed some of my tears and my joy on your paintings today, on your drawings today.
Thank you.
Other questions?
Yeah.
I know you're still working, so is there a particular paper you use and a particular graphite that you like at this point? I know things have changed over the years, as well as ink.
Well, paper, I am very picky about paper. Paper has to be good. And I work with hot press paper, so I never wanted to have too much texture in the paper. The texture was coming from me, not from the paper. And I used at the beginning the Scholle Parole, Scholle Hammer, and then Scholle, the Germans stopped doing that paper, which I'm glad, because this is a paper from cellulose that is not very good. Later I learned that. So I'm using arches, hot press arches. To graphite, I use everything, absolutely everything. I can tell you only one, only probably. Everything that is in the market, I have it in my house. And then the ink.
Other questions?
Easy.
It's a light one. It's existential. Something that I noticed in your work early on and really enjoyed in seeing everything as a whole is that the darkest layers of graphite are built so slowly and intentionally. And so what I was sort of taken with is that those parts of the drawings have to be done with somewhat of a light touch in order to prevent all of the burnishing. But then some of the lightest areas are done with this actually very, very hard, like sharp pencil that you then go over. So I was just sort of interested in this sort of like existential part of your work where like the lightest is actually done with the firmest touch. And I was wondering if that's something you've thought about, like conceptually.
When you say lightest, what do you mean? What is pressure. The pressure? Sometimes when you are working, and you need to be just tender, kind of tender with your work. Just go there and almost don't touch them. Like the work should look, that was touched probably of a bird or something like that. You have to learn to move your body according to the work. It can sound like I am lying or doing something, saying something, trying to say something out of, I don't know where, but this is that. If sometimes you are working and you are just, working in such a way that it's like going with a knife and just working over the paper. But then you have to be so light. It's like that way. It's when you are cooking. Depends what you are cooking. You have to beat very hard or you have to beat very slowly, very slowly. But it's absolutely true. I'm not lying. One day you can come to my studio and we'll show you how you work. Yes, it's because it's about feelings. It's what you are doing is, these are feelings that you don't know that they are, but they are there. And you have to pour them over your work. And music in your studio, lots of music. But this is how it is. It's James. I work. These are almost 70 years that I'm working with graphite. You learn with time, you will see, because it comes. You learn how to move your body, how to move yourself, how to be in front of your drawings, your works. Sometimes they need you to be strong, and sometimes to be just quiet and wonderful. Look at Rembrandt. Go and look at Rembrandt.
Sometimes you have to be hard and throw things at the audience member. Yeah. I think we have time for maybe one more question before I. Oh yeah. Oh, great. Sorry, I was wrapped up with what you were saying. Vivian, yeah.
Josefina, you've been the theme of Voyage has been on this, and I've wondered if you could just say a little bit. This is about being in a new country with a new language, never having driven. All the things that you took on were so inspiring for me. And if you can talk about what that was for you, all the changes that you had to take on when you came here.
Well, it happened everything. I am not a person that gets depressed easily. I am not a depressing person. But I am, probably I go to the other side. But the thing is, at the beginning, I was really very depressed because, my mentor used to call me every morning in Buenos Aires, 8:30 in the morning. Manuel will call me, and how is Abby? And how are the children? Are you going to the studio? I said, yes. Are you going to work? Yes. Good. That's the thing. That was a call that I missed a lot. And I missed a lot, in general, my friends, a lot, because I care for my friends. I am Tauro. I'm a Tauro, and Tauro cares a lot for your friends. And and it wasn't easy, but it was very humble. I became like a very humble person. It is in a way, it's like coming from a place where really I was the emerging young artist in Argentina, not the only one, with a group of young artists that we were coming out and we were received and everything very well. But I came here and there was a lot of silence and very difficult to. So I learned bit by bit, Vivian, you know me, to be more introverted in a way, just caring more about what was happening to me, what was happening to my work. The wonderful thing is that I never stopped working. The moment we came here and we rented an apartment with my husband, I went to Larry's, to the art and craftsman's, and I bought an easel, and I bought paper, and I bought pencils, and I began to work. And bit by bit, because people like you, that you were a very good friends for me all the time, all my life here, and some probably the help of my husband. Avi was a wonderful guy, and once I said, well, I will, let's have a coffee shop. Let's have a coffee shop, and I will work with you. And he said, no, I want you to continue working in your studio. And I met people like Bruce Brown and Judith Sobol. And one night I invited you for dinner to my house. I was living in Baxter Place, Bruce. And Bruce came to see my works. And he was so nice and so generous that he took himself 2 works and took them to the biennial at the North, where you were the curator at the yes.
Yeah. Before it was the CMCA, I think.
Yes.
But, yeah.
And I will never forget that. Never. So people are very good and very generous in the United States compared to other places. And you don't know, you sometimes don't realize that this is such a wonderful country, because there is something. The United States has problems, has problems, they are good, they are bad, there are things that should be changed, but the same thing is it's one of the only places that you come and you can work and live and be happy. And once I read an interview at do you remember the magazine of the New York Times? There was a woman writing a series of interviews to really very important people. And she is interviewed Noam Chomsky. So he was complaining like, oh, blah, blah, blah. And then she said, but if you complain so much and so unhappy, why you're still here? She said, this is the best place in the world to live. So that's why I'm living here. And that's what it is. So that was happy, Vivian.
Well,
Your padlocks, do you remember?
Well, thank you, Josefina. I think you have a lot of people whose lives you've touched here. We are so glad that we've had this opportunity to hear from you, to look at your work. I would like to invite everyone next door. We'll have some refreshments. If you haven't had a chance to see the exhibition, I hope you will. It will be open through May 31st. But as we close out the formal part of today's program, I would like you to join me in thanking Sarah, but especially Josefina.